right, joining us now is Abbas Aslani. He's a senior research fellow at the Centre for Middle East Strategic Studies in Tehran. Internet access is still down across Iran, although some people are able to connect through press centres. Mr. Aslani, thank you very much for joining us. The United States just there reiterating at that latest UN meeting that all options are on the table. Are you worried about what that might mean?
Anna, as we speak and the dust is settling in the country and the streets of Tehran have quieted and other cities, it seems that the optical focus is shifting from, let's say, the square to the situation rooms or outside, and the sessions like being held at the United Nations Security Council. The probability of any U.S. intervention seems to be a shadow on the horizon yet. But as we speak, it appears to be receding due to the remarks by Donald Trump, and there could be different reasons to that. This operation could not be a surgical operation, but rather than opening a Pandora box, because as a result of the pro-system rallies held in the country, which seem to be a counterweight to the, let's say, a regime change or the unrest in the country, this might be impacting the calculus back in Washington. But when you look at the cohesion among the elites or political officials, we are not seeing any crack, but they seem to be somehow united against any foreign aggression. But more importantly, Anna, is that many people here in Tehran are unhappy about the economic grievances. A number of them came to the streets, but the masses and a great large or significant number of them remained at home. And when, protests, which initially originated from economic hardship in the heart of Bazaar, of Tehran, turned to political violence, they tried to somehow avoid that situation. They didn't, join those masses. And that's why it makes it, the scenario of a regime change in the country a bit distant and very difficult. And that might be the United States, despite that scenario being very serious. Iran is looking at that scenario very seriously. But at the moment that we speak, it seems somehow, the chances are reducing. And in the meantime, the most important issue is that the United States is thinking that what type of quality any kind of military aggression can have in the country. Back in 12-day war, it had the rally around the flag effect in the country. And it seems that it could be somehow similar, given that the average citizens do not want to roll out a red carpet for a foreign aggression.
OK, can we go back a step here? Because when we talk about what actually fueled these protests in the first place, take a step back from whatever military aggression we may or may not be talking about or involvement from the US. At the start of this was about the economic situation, and thousands of people did turn out into the streets. They didn't stay at home. They chose to point out that they were feeling this economic stress, and now we have seen thousands of them arrested. Do you think this was the only way, these arrests, to try and quash the protest movement?
Anna, in order to understand the nuances of the situation, we need to dissect the anatomy of these protests. It started in the heart of Bazaar here in the capital city as a result of, let's say, problems people were facing in their livelihoods, and those shopkeepers or businessmen having, in their economic activities. And by the time that these legitimate economic cry were in the scene, we were witnessing a peaceful, more or less peaceful protests. And in a number of protests, even policemen, tried to support the protesters. But at the moment that these protests turned from those economic concerns into more political, let's say, violence and the unrest in the country, this seemed to be a different story. And the armed, security forces, police stations, mosques, public buildings, private properties were attacked. And that was, a conventional way by the security forces to counter them. A number of people were, arrested, which could be somehow significant. Also, the number of casualties was also there from both sides, security forces as well as those in front of them. And by the time that this, happened, it somehow intimidated the public masses to join in future. And this somehow sidelines those real voices protesting the economic situation, because these protests initially were not born out of political ideology, but that economic hardship. And that's why it makes it a bit difficult for those real protesters to be heard. And for the security forces and the security establishment, they had no choice but to react, because even medical staff were burnt alive. Some people were beheaded from the security forces. And this is not even something that even those protesters are aspiring to see. And that's why it somehow confuses the situation. And that's why we shouldn't mistake those economic protests with the, let's say, violence or unrest which were going on past week.
All right, thank you very much. Abbas Aslani joining us from Tehran.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.